Hey, first grade friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. Welcome to another week of art. What I'd like you guys to do today before we get started with the materials that I sent home to you is I'd like you to break out your sketchbook and turn to a blank page. And you might say, Mrs. Herbay, why are you asking us to do that? And the reason is we're going to practice drawing hearts. Hearts are kind of a tricky thing to draw, and we're going to need to be able to draw some hearts onto these colorful papers that I sent home to you. Okay? So what I like to do is before I do anything that's new or a little tricky, I like to practice. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you guys a couple of strategies on how to do hearts. So go ahead, grab your sketchbook, grab a pencil, and then we'll get started. All right, so the cool thing about drawing hearts is that really if you can make this one particular line, you're going to be able to draw a heart. And what it is if you can make a rainbow and then another rainbow, it's almost like the letter M, you can make a heart. Here's why. After you make that shape, then what you're going to do is if you go down a little bit of a ways and put a dot there, then what you can do is you can swipe down to the dot and swipe down to the dot. Okay? Now, I want you to play around and experiment with what if you spread the curves out really far? What if you put the dot that comes down the middle really far down? What kind of a heart are you going to get? Whoa, this heart is going to be rather large. What if I made these lines really thin and close together? And then let's say I come down and put my dot right here. Now I've got a really kind of teeny tiny heart. But what if I did the same thing, but I put the dot a lot further down from the middle here? Well, now I have a really tall, skinny heart. Let's try again. Let's do just sort of kind of medium curves, okay? And let's try to put the dot, let's see what happens when we put the dot not so far down. And then I curve over here like that. So now the heart's really kind of short and wide, right? So I hope you're starting to get the idea where if you draw your curves close together, your heart is going to be thin. And if you space out your curves, your heart is going to be wider. And the more you space out your curves, the wider and bigger your heart can be. So, and then the other thing that plays a factor is how far down are you making this letter V. And what I usually like to do is put that little dot there because it kind of tells me, well, how far down do I want to go? Do I want to go down that far or do I want to go down this far? And you can kind of experiment around with that. You could also just try it where you make your curve and then you make the letter V. And you can kind of see here, it's a little bit, it's not quite as rounded, but there you can do it like that. So what I'd like you to do is in your sketchbook, I would like you to, based on what we just talked about, I would like you to take, so I'm going to turn to a clean page, and what I would like you to do is I would like you to practice the strategies that we just talked about, And then what I'd like you to do is fill your entire paper with hearts. Okay? Are you up for the challenge? All right. On your mark, get set, go. All right, guys, how did you do? Were you able to fill your paper with a lot of different shaped hearts? I hope that you were, and if you had a little bit of trouble, I would encourage you to just practice a little bit again, and you'll find that it's probably going to come a little bit easier the more that you practice. Okay, so now what I want us to do is I want to look at these hearts, and I want us to think about, I want to teach you guys a fancy art word, and the word is called symmetry. And what symmetry means is that something can be the same on both sides if it was divided into half. So if I took my pencil and I put a pretend line down the middle of this heart, and I'm looking to see, yes, this left side is the same as the right side. Now, because I drew it with my hands, it's not perfectly exactly the same, but it is symmetrical. If we look at some of the other hearts, again, if we divided a line down the middle, they are symmetrical, the same on both sides. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out some of the colored paper that I sent home to you. Okay. And what I want you to do is pick two of the colors, and then we'll leave the other two colors aside. So go ahead, get your colored paper, and then we're going to go on to the next step. All right, guys. So what I want to do is I want to show you a trick, how to draw, or actually how to draw and then cut out hearts that are perfectly symmetrical. And in this case, you're only going to have to draw half of the heart's shape. Okay? So how's that going to work? What we're going to do is we're going to take our square paper and we're going to fold it in half. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the right side and line up the right corners with the left corners. So all I did was I kind of just took my hand, kind of tried to nudge the paper over, and once I see the corners are lined up, I'm going to hold those corners together with my left hand. Then I'm going to take my pointer finger and I'm going to slide it across and put a nice big crunch right into that that paper. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide up and down, and that's going to put a nice sharp crease in my paper. Okay? So there's one. And then I'm going to try it again. So I'm going to hold the left side of my paper with my left hand, then I'm going to kind of put my right hand underneath, and I'm going to kind of fold it up and over. And I'm going to meet up those corners. I'm going to hold the paper. I'm going to push, slide up, and slide down. Okay? So now we have two pieces of folded paper. But what I want you to do is I want you to turn the paper so that it looks like there is an open mouth. And I want that open mouth to be on the right side of your table, and I want the fold to be on the left side. If you're confused about left and right, what I want you to do is just put your paper on your table so that it looks exactly like this, where you see it looking like this. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to practice drawing a heart on this folded piece of paper. So now what we're going to do is we're going to close up that mouth, which is over here, and we're going to go over to the fold side. The fold is where we are going to start our drawing. And what's going to happen is we're going to put two lines on our fold. The first one is we are going to draw that first curved line, which is the top of the heart. But we're going to start on this very edge here. So you can decide how far down you want to come, but you want to come down far enough that you have enough room to make a rainbow or a curved line. Okay? So I'm going to put a little dot right here, and you guys can kind of see that dot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing up and around, but I'm only going to do it one time. And you're going to say, well, how come we're doing it only once? We did it twice on our other paper. Well, because the paper is folded, we only are going to draw half of the heart. So we're only going to draw one side, one curve, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to follow our finger down the fold, but we're not going to go all the way to the very bottom. We're going to kind of, and you can decide again, do you want your heart to be really long? So you might put your dot way at the bottom, not totally at the bottom, but close to the bottom. Or do you want your heart a little bit wider, and are you going to put the dot a little bit closer, a little bit further up? You decide. I think I want my heart to be a little bit longer. So this is where my dot is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up here at this line, and I'm going to curve down till I get to this line. Okay, so now what you see is this boop, and then curve down to there. Okay, now here's where the magic happens. Now what I'm going to do is I want to cut this out in one single step. All right, so what that means is, if you watch, I'm going to start with my scissors down here at the bottom, and I'm going to slowly cut along the line. But I want to stay on the line the whole time. And as I'm cutting, I'm rotating my paper. Rotating my paper until I get to there. Okay? So now here's what's kind of magical about this. If I open this up, I have a heart, right? But the heart was made from taking this heart out of the middle. So now I have something that's called positive space and negative space. So the negative space is the area around an object. And so when I removed the positive space, now I have another heart. So I have a positive and a negative heart. Okay? So that was kind of fun. And so what I want you to do is put these two hearts aside, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to try it again. And maybe if the first time you did it, you came down pretty far and you made a really big tall curve, maybe this time you want to change it, and maybe you don't want to come down as far. Maybe you want to make your curve wider and shorter. It's totally up to you, okay? So let's try it again. So let's line up our paper so that it looks like this, where the fold is on the left side and the open part is on the right side, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to close the mouth. So we're going to shut that open mouth, and our fold is over here, okay? So this time I'm going to start closer up to the top. And when I make my curve, it's not going to go up so high. It's just going to kind of curve. It's going to come way over, almost to this edge. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot, but I'm going to not put it as far down as I did before. I'm going to put it right here, okay? And then I'm just going to rotate my paper a little bit, and then here's the cool thing. I just want to bring these to this end down to here, okay? And if it's a little wonky on the end, you can just adjust it, and so that it's a smoother curve. And there we have it, okay? And then we're going to do the fancy cutting trick again, where we're going to start cutting. And we're rotating like so, okay? And then here's the magical part about that. I I've got two hearts, a negative heart and a positive heart. Okay, so what I would like you to do is finish. So if you've cut these two hearts, great. You have two extra pieces of paper that you can use to try this again if you would like. Or let's say it already worked out fine. What you could do is you could take one of your other pieces of paper, and if you wanted to, you could try the trick again, but you could try it making smaller hearts. So what we could do is we could actually cut this piece of paper into some pieces. So now I have 3 smaller pieces, right? So now my heart is going to be a lot smaller. So the open side is still always going to be on the right side, but this time when I draw my curve, I'm just going to make a little curve, and then if I want to, let's try bringing this curve all the way down to the corner. So we did it a little bit differently this time, where we didn't end up here, but we ended all the way at the bottom. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, so if I hold this close together like that, and I'm going to start down here. I'm cutting along my lines. Oops, Mrs. Herbay actually got a little bit off her lines, but that's okay. When I open this up, check it out. I have a little tiny heart. And here is what was created when I cut that out. So it's actually, there's a little bit of a break in it because it was at the bottom. All right. Let's do it one more time. Let's try, this time I want to make a really tall, skinny curve. Okay. And then same thing, I'm going to go from here down to this point. So it's just like boom, like that. Let's cut that out and see what it looks like. Ta-da! So now I have 2 different kind of heart shapes, and then we'll do the last one. The last one, let's come down a little bit further down. So we'll come down here, and I'm going to make kind of a big curve like that, and then I'm going to bring it down to that corner, and then we're going to cut this one out too. All right, so I have 3 different heart shapes. All right, so if that's something that looks like fun to you and you would like to do that with the other 2 extra pieces of colored paper you have, great. Another thing that you could do, if you like, is instead of doing it the folded way, with some of these extra scraps, we could go back to our traditional way where we did curve, curve, and then we slide down, make a dot, and then we go curve, curve. And you could cut out hearts that way too. We could go big curve, slide down, curve down, curve down. Okay? And then what you could do is you could cut out the hearts like this. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is, once you have, what we're going to need for next week is we're going to need 2 negative hearts and 2 positive hearts. Okay, the other little hearts are just fun practice. We don't necessarily need them. So let's say you make a mistake on one of your pieces. That's okay because you have 2 extra pieces, okay? And then what I want you to do is put these hearts, all of them, in a safe place with your tissue paper background. And then I'm going to show you next week how we're going to put it all together, okay? So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you have fun drawing hearts and practicing folding and cutting out symmetrical hearts. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday.